What's going on, everybody? It's Childish. We're back at it again, coming at you with another Summoner's War video. In today's video, I got a special one for you all. We're going to be doing an artifact guide, giving you guys everything you need to know about the artifacts in Summoner's War. But as you guys know, I am 2 IQ. I don't know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to artifacts. So I was able to reach out to a G2 RTA player that is connect with me, and of course, a Summoners War streamer. We got Mactrocity on the call. Mactrocity, how you doing today?
Good, man. How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good. I'm trying to figure out in my head, why did it take so long for us to collab and make some content for the community? What's the deal, huh?
Well, I hadn't really started streaming until about October, so that's probably what a lot of it has to do.
Yeah, that's probably what it is, but it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, guys, if you guys don't know who McTrosty is, don't you worry. I'm going to leave a link in the description down below if you guys want to show your support and help him out on over there on Twitch here. So yeah, let's get into it. We don't want to waste any time. Artifacts is just something for me that I feel like I've been leaving out. I've been doing what I'm supposed to do, right? Doing the farming, throwing them on there, but I still do not pay super attention to it. So let's start from the beginning on this one. When it comes to artifacts, Mac, what do you look for when focused on each one? Because obviously we have a lot of different things to focus on when it comes to these specific types.
So when you have your element artifact, right? That's your water, your fire, your wind, light, and dark. Those kind of artifacts do not have the skill accuracy or skill crit damage on them. That would be your type attribute, right? Your HP, your defense, your support types, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking for water, or let's just say, for instance, fire, right? One of the things that you want to know is, what are you going to do when you use this artifact? So monsters like Covenant, for instance, Covenant has quite a few uses. One of the popular uses that Ferris, the other streamer that you know really well, and I are using him for, right?
Mm-hmm.
We use him against Leo comps for RTA. So one of the main things that, and I'm still in the process of looking for this particular artifact for Covenant, right?
Right.
But one of the main things you look for is damage on. So like, as you see, I don't really have damage on in this artifact, and that's why I'm still searching for it. But what you would look for is damage on dark and damage on light, because that's the usage that I'm going to be using for Covenant.
Okay.
So you got to ask yourself, if I'm looking for a specific artifact, what's that usage of the artifact, right? One of the other main ones that's really important is additional damage. So you look for the oracles, for instance, right? Sierra, additional damage by attack, even additional damage by defense, additional damage by speed. You got to ask yourself, what are you using for the artifact for? And that's what you're looking for. So for the element ones, you're looking for added damage, you're looking for damage dealt on, or you're looking for damage minus. So you're looking for reduction damage. A big one for Vigor is damage less from wind. This is mainly for areas of the game where you're more concerned with like Guild War defense and siege defense, or even arena defense. Damage minus from wind is really popular one because of Lucian, right?
Right.
16% less damage. That's basically a max double roll. That's kind of a lot in terms of Lucian. When you look at him using amplitude magic, and you're losing 16% of that incoming damage, like that's a lot.
Yeah.
So for the attribute ones, you're looking for the minus damage for usage. You're looking for the additional damage for usage. When you get an artifact, you have to look at it, and you're going to look at, see this main stat is HP. You're going to look at the main stat, and you're going to ask yourself, can I use this with those substats? So that's kind of what you're looking for. You know your monster box, and you look at, I need this, and I even make a list sometimes for myself. That way, when I'm looking through farming, I can look and see if I hit it.
Okay, so I guess like the overall stats you're looking at, I mean, there's a lot of them that you can make an argument for being important, but I guess one thing to do is as well, like you were talking about the whole win versus Vigor, is maybe setting up specific artifacts with skills depending on what comp you bring. For example, if I am setting up a Guild War defense that is heavily susceptible to copper, bulldozer, and I set up a copper trap, what could I make an argument to, put in, some artifacts that have damage received, reduction versus fire or wind, because I'm assuming, like, I want people to come into it with ignore defense. I mean, do you know if is that going to be enough, or is just setting up a trap, going to be good to go?
So setting up a trap, that's definitely something you would look for, is minus damage from wind and minus damage from fire, so you don't go in that bulldozer copper range. The thing is, minus damage from wind to me is more important than minus damage from fire, because you can set up a copper trap and this just is the icing on the cake to ensure it,
Sure.
right? Some people would argue that minus damage from fire is more important because you can set up a copper trap by defense, and that's a 100% accurate argument. You can,
Right.
if your runes allow you to do that, right? But I'm going to be more honest on my side of things. I'm more worried about copper than I am with bulldozer, depending on where I'm at in the content for siege. If I'm in high siege, most of the time I'm in high siege, to hit that defense mark to be a copper trap, that's a coin flip.
Okay.
Whereas I would be ready to just do the minus wind damage and be more comfortable with it.
Gotcha. Now let me ask you this too. Since we're on the topic of specific, damage reduction ones, is there any, if you could think of like, obviously we were talking about Viger there for a second, any other free to play units out there for the community that maybe they can consider, utilizing damage reductions right now that maybe you guys see, very, very common in like Guild War defenses or siege defenses?
Triana is a huge one. I mean, Triana is not necessarily a free to play unit, but she's a very common unit that most free to players have.
Sure.
Minus damage from win on Triana, and you use her on your arena defense or Guild War defense. If Triana lives through Illusion passive, then her passive procs and saves something else.
Oh,
So using Triana with minus wind damage for arena defense, right? You use Vanessa lead if you have a Vanessa. Vanessa Triana is a very popular arena defense for comps that want to just be able to last through the first wave of damage coming through and then just sustain and then, poke damage until the person attacking dies, right? Because most arena offenses, when they're going, they have one or two full waves of damage come in and then they run out of steam.
Okay.
So if you got a Vanessa who's already going to take potentially less damage from Illusion because of the the glancing off element, right?
Right.
So they don't crit, and then you have a Triana who has minus wind damage. That Triana most of the time is going to live, and that Vanessa most of the time is going to take less damage. So if something dies, it may come back with a Vanessa passive, or Triana just may straight up prevent it from dying altogether.
So yeah, it's an interesting take on that. I didn't even think about it like that. Let me. What about this though? Just kind of going on the side, and now that I'm staring at your artifact here, when it comes to additional damage, one of the things that you said is super important: the damage dealt on or the additional damage. All those are very, very important. But a lot of things that people overlook, is the stuff like accuracy, is the stuff like just the over crit damage. Can you talk a little bit about some of those secondary stats that most people overlook and why they are super important?
I can. So oracles, for instance, right? Everybody keeps talking about how good Juno got, right?
Mm-hmm.
The reason why Juno is so good right now in units like Juno or Chung Pung skill 3 who hits 3 times, Viger's skill 3 who hits 3 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Additional damage by whatever, right? So for instance, right, this one is additional damage by 91% of speed. That applies to every hit.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So oracles, right, their skill 1, they attack 3 times. So when you have these artifacts for additional damage and you're stacking them, so like that one's 91% of speed, this one's 75% of speed, 2% of attack. My Juno could have better artifacts. That's fact. But the artifacts I have on her are still something that are doing their job, right?
Right.
Every hit that she does, that additional damage stacks to it. So if they're doing more than 2 hits, as much damage as you can get for the stats that matter. So like for Juno, my Juno, right? Speed is up there, attack is up there, HP is up there. Defense is okay. I want any of those for Juno because they all stack per hit.
Right.
So those additional damage artifacts are what really changed this meta for RTA. You see stuff like Praha, even though she got a pretty good buff to her skill 3, but Praha still is seeing play because of additional damage artifacts. Gotcha. You see stuff like I said, like Viger, right? 93% of speed, and then I have some speed over here. Those apply per hit to his skill 3 that multi hits. Three times, right? That's damage that cannot be negated. It cannot be changed. It's flat damage stacked on top of whatever you deal. So that's why additional damage is so good.
Right.
It's not something that can be skewed unless the attribute that it's attached to is skewed. So for instance, additional damage by speed. It's probably the most powerful one in the game.
Sure.
The only way you're going to take less additional damage by speed is if I'm under a speed inability effect. Same thing for additional damage by def. If I'm defense broken, you'll take less. Additional damage by attack. If I'm attack broken, you're going to take less. HP, I think HP disrupt does do it.
Okay.
but you don't see HP as often. It's still good, but to me, I would be focused more on speed than HP. Unless obviously you're doing something that's HP based, that you're not running on a lot of speed. So like something like Halpus, where you have zero
Right.
speed. You know
Right.
what I mean? So like Halpus will still benefit from additional damage by speed, but he'll only benefit from his base speed, and that's it.
Gotcha. And even though that the additional damage by speed is super OP, the additional damage by attack is super OP. At the end of the day, just getting the additional damage overall is still going to be beneficial. Like obviously, let's say for example, we got a free to play player watching right now, and they got the super sick additional damage by defense, additional damage by HP, and maybe some other stats right now. Obviously we're looking for the speed, we're looking for the attack as well. But if they don't have it, that's still going to be of good value to them because it's adding that flat overall damage. Correct.
Correct. So the big thing about additional damage by attack and additional damage by defense, right? Most monsters in the game have pretty good base additional damage by attack and additional damage by defense.
Okay.
Of course, you're going to look at the substats to add to it, but that base makes that artifact still usable and still valuable if you're having something that hits 3, 4, or 5 times on a skill.
Okay.
So yes, you would benefit more from something else, but still having that artifact, if you don't have something else yet, you don't have something else at the moment, it's still beneficial to use it.
Okay.
Right. And I want to bring up a point because you said something that I want to point out, right? Okay. One of the things that people pay attention to when they pay attention to the artifacts is the substat at the top, that 1500% HP.
Right.
So that can be a good and bad thing, right? I say good because obviously an extra 1500 HP on something that you're tanking with is really good. But at the same time, you get so distracted by that you don't look at the subs that you have on an artifact that may be attack or defense based, right? Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that those are bad, right? So let me find an example. Perfect example right here. Leo, right? Most people want heavy attack on Leo and heavy defense on Leo, or heavy attack and heavy HP artifacts.
Right.
To tank more, right? Well, this defense artifact I got has additional damage by 0.58% HP, and then I have some skill recovery on skill 2 that I wanted, right? Mm-hmm. For what I had at the moment when I was ruining Leo, I just wanted something. Because I had that, it was more of a usage to me. Even though Leo only hits once, out of the artifacts I had at that moment when I was ruining him, I just needed it. Right? So I went with the defense one because I wanted the defense stat to boost my stats. So I wasn't always looking for an HP one for just Leo.
Right.
You look at what substats you have to go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I get one thing that kind of stays at aside as well is I think the big thing that like free to play players can take away is for their, BJR5 comps. Like Baelger, we're obviously looking for the additional damage. We're looking for the attack up, with regards to lost HP because we get a little bit of value after that second blow. We're looking for the skill 3 crit damage, but one of the things that they forget to do is just overall just look for a random attack artifact just to give them that overall 200, attack booster.
Yes, and one of the things I want to bring up to what you just said is the way that Baelger works, right? Mm-hmm. You looking at this artifact, you see the skill 3 crit damage by 9%, right?
Right.
So Baelger is one of those guys that benefits from additional damage artifacts and skill 3 crit damage. His skill 1 is not something that's going to be used in BJ5. Because of the way his passive works, right?
Right.
So what you look at the third skill, and that's this, right? That's the hit that you're using BJ5. So looking for skill 3 is something that you wanted, right?
Right.
So BJ5, for instance, is something you have to shoot for stat-wise. You need so much attack, so much crit rate, so much crit damage, so much HP to be able to kill the boss and survive the waves. But if you have all those stacked, and say I had an HP artifact that had 22% crit damage on skill 3. Well, that 22% crit damage to me may be worth way more than that flat 100 attack because it's an HP artifact. Right. I would 100% run skill 3 crit damage by 22% with an HP base over any attack artifact unless it was close to it.
Sure.
So to me, when you look at something for the dungeon teams or BJR5 and you're shooting for those stats, sometimes these substats are worth more than that main 100 attack. Yeah. And for this instance, 22% crit damage, which is a max triple or almost a max triple, it's totally worth it.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's a good point to make here. So, how about this though? One of the things that we talked about off stream was the +6 rule. When people hear the +6 rule, they've been like, "Oh, I already know about that, Childish. You know, we're talking about that 3-2-1 rule in Guild Wars." No, you got a rule when it comes to your artifacts. Tell us a little bit about that.
So, for instance, I did this run so that I could show you guys this. I personally don't run blue artifacts. I don't roll them at all.
You're a baller.
To me, to me, to me, if you do blue artifacts, and even if you get a max double, over time you're gonna get that double on another artifact, and you wasted the mana. To me, mana right now I have a lot of mana, but I only have a lot of mana because I have uh, a high set for what I keep because of what I have. But before, even earlier this year, like May or June time, I was under 10 mil mana all the time
Hmm.
because I was constantly getting stuff, leveling it and whatnot. And I finally, paid attention to what I was doing, and I +6 stuff. So I look at this, right? Defense artifact, it's got bomb damage, additional damage by attack, additional damage on wind. So the bomb damage in dark, I could use that for Libly, but I know that my artifacts on Libly are better
Sure.
than what this could roll. So I don't roll it, I sell it. I look at this one, wind with attack. That's not bad. The main thing I'm looking at on here that I kind of like is the defense plus proportionate to lost HP for 5, and maybe the damage dealt on dark, right? Because damage dealt on dark, that's against stuff like Ragdoll, Nyx, popular RTA units.
Yeah.
So I'll roll this one to 6, right? And we'll see. The main thing I'm looking for is the defense plus, because even though that's an attack base main stat, that defense plus proportional lost HP, if that rolls good, I could use this as a bruiser one for like a Wind Monkey King or something.
Yeah, most definitely. It's crazy how many bruisers out there you just need all the stats, right? I mean, we can make it harder for a lot of units like that.
So this went fire and dark, and those are kind of like questionable rolls. To me, I went to 6. I don't like it. I just sell. Move on to the next one. This one, wind, HP. It's got bomb. It's got reflect damage. It's not worth it to me to try it. This one's fire. Additional damage by defense. This could be good. Damage received from dark. That's not bad. So if I roll this, right, and it skips the speed under inability, and I get a high def roll and a high damage receive roll, this could be a potentially good Juno one. So I'm probably not going to keep this because a 2% defense roll is pretty low.
Right.
The damage received from dark, again, that's stuff that's popular in RTA like Ragdoll.
Yeah. And do you have a list for like the min rolls and max rolls for every single stat or whatnot? I feel like Make It a Bud has made one, but I'm not sure if it's a common thing out there.
I have one, but I would have to pull it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we don't need it now. I was just curious to see if that's like something that's kind of common or floating in the Reddit community.
So I think there actually is one out in the Reddit community that was released when artifacts were released.
Okay.
This one's not too bad. Damage received from dark, damage received from wind, and additional damage by HP. Even again, looking at this, attack plus on this is a mainly tankier style artifact with the substats. That attack doesn't necessarily mean it's a wasted artifact if this rolls good substat. Right. So to me, I'm mainly more concerned about the substat. So like that 10 roll or the +10 right there, that's not too bad.
No, yeah.
So if I get HP of like 0.4 or 0.5, that's really good. Or a 10 from the dark, that's good. 10 from the dark. Those are okay rolls. Those are about in the middle.
Right.
And then I would roll it one more time just to see if I don't get something high, then I would just sell it. So like right now I'm wanting that minus 16% damage from wind. So I got 13%. So looking at this artifact, I know I have one that's very similar. It's better. If I would have got the 16%, I would have kept it. But sure. I rolled it to +6. It had potential. I rolled it to 9, and I lost the potential. So it's a sell for me.
Gotcha. And you said you sell that because you got another one here. Could we make an argument for specific types of artifacts with certain stats that you would keep multiples of for certain units?
Yes, you could do that. You could do that argument. But to me, if you see my artifact storage, I'm at 273. Before we started stream, I was at like 290-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of keep it low. That way I could keep stuff at +9 as I'm or +6. I mean, as I'm rolling it through, this menu. But I want to keep them what I got, unless I get something better to keep that number low, so I don't cap out, or I don't just have to pull units from storage and slap them all on there.
Yeah, interesting take. Okay, so and then let me ask you this because I was like, I think I almost forgot to ask you this one. When it comes to the dungeons. A lot of us are really, really focused on PvP and doing what we got to do for units for Siege, Guild War. RTA, whatever like that. But you make the argument for, you know, making sure you get those improvements with regards to dungeon. I think if I recall correctly, you just told me you were able to help out another one of the streamers out there. Shouts out to
Yes,
Gigi one time
yes,
to
I
get her neck
was.
raised. Yeah, that's cool.
So Gigi has a twin comp for Necro.
Hmm.
She's doing 3 twins, Fran, and I can't remember what her fifth is, but she was struggling with it. And I asked her to show me her monsters and the stats, and I was like, you just need a little bit of more attack or HP here or defense, because there were certain things that her monsters weren't surviving the waves, right?
Hmm.
So I asked her to open it up, and a lot of her monsters had no artifacts on them. So I was like, hey, just bear with me, power up some of the stuff, put it on, and let's see what you accomplish with it, right? So one of the main things we did for Gigi was we were looking for, see, as you see mine, this one only has additional damage by defense. We were looking for additional damage artifacts, because additional damage artifacts on twins, they're just nuts.
Huge. Right,
They're
right,
just
right.
nut-
Disgusting.
they're just literally nuts. So Gigi had some that like rolled like 2 rolls into additional damage on one, and then like a roll into something bad, and she was getting discouraged. And I was like, Gigi, it'll be okay. Just try it out. I was like, that should be enough damage for you to clear. And she was like, is it? And I was like, well, yeah. I was like, is this ideal? No. But will this get you to clear, through clearing the content? Yes. So she bared with me. We did all her monsters, and all of a sudden she was passing Necro without a lot of failures. So when you're struggling on some content and you're looking for that little bit of edge, it's a big deal. It's a
Right.
really big deal.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Yeah. So let me ask you this now. We got a lot of people out there in the community that are definitely looking for that take home message. You know, what are your, top 3 tips or any top tips that you just want to drop for them to take on after checking out this video?
The first tip I give you guys, if you're looking for specific artifacts, make sure that you have a role for them, right? So for me right now, I am looking for a better Juno artifact for RTA and a better Covenant artifact for RTA. To me, I know for Juno, I need additional damage by defense, additional damage by attack, additional damage by HP, and additional damage by speed. So I'm trying to shoot for those on both the elemental and the type artifact for Juno.
Mhm.
For Covenant, I'm looking for additional damage on dark, additional damage on light, and receive damage from wind, or not wind, I'm sorry, receive damage from dark less. Because my usage of Covenant, I run it into stuff that has Leo, and most of the time when I'm seeing a Leo when I draft it, there's a Ragdoll. So I want to make sure I have additional damage on dark, so with Covenant I can hit through Ragdolls. So I bring those points up because when I'm artifact searching right now, those are kind of the highlights that I'm looking for specific stuff, because I know that I have an immediate use for those.
Right.
When you have stuff that you know you don't have an immediate use for, you look for efficiency on the artifact. You look for, if I roll this to +6 and it has a good efficiency, are those substats universal? Well, additional damage substats are pretty universal.
Mhm.
So you look for efficiency when you roll a +6 to see if it has a good efficiency if you don't have an immediate use. The second takeaway I want you guys to take away from is, if your dungeon teams are failing, look at what you could do with what artifacts you do have to try to make it better. So for instance, if you're running twins and you don't even have artifacts on your twins, any artifacts with additional damage substats are going to be good on those twins.
Right.
Or if your twins are dying and you're using attack type artifacts, try to use HP based artifacts for one of them and see if that extra bit of HP will keep your twins alive enough to clear the dungeon. Same thing can be said for BJ5. If you're doing BJ5 and you just don't have enough attack, then you're looking for just attack artifacts for that Baileygr to see if you can hit, with that extra 200 attack, that attack percent damage that you need to be able to BJ5.
Right.
So at that point, you're really not looking at substats. You're just looking for the overall usage of an artifact for you to progress. And then the third takeaway that I want to take away is the +6 rule. I use this +6 roll for both runes and artifacts as I get them, so that I know, is this going to be a waste of my time to keep it? If I +6 it and it's, not worth the +9, I sell it. If it's at +9, I know when I'm looking for it that I should already have it at +9, and I can go from there and already have kind of an idea of what's going on with it.
Right on, man. Cool. Well, thank you for the information. Is there anything else that you wanted to add that you made a thought of when we were talking about other stuff early on, or?
Yeah, for those of you that are very interested in Guild Wars, very interested in Arena, very interested in Siege, and even interested in RTA, when you're farming artifacts, strategy is extremely important. Faraz is another streamer, and he's the one that brought the additional damage on and additional damage received by Dark for the Covenant idea to me. And he's a genius because honestly, when I'm thinking about Covenant, even with usage, and I'm looking at artifacts, that's not something that immediately comes to the surface for me.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
him explaining something like that, it's huge. It's extremely huge. It's 5-head. You
Hmm.
look at it and you're like, wow, this is so smart because it makes that much of an impactful difference. Just think about how much even a 13% additional damage on Dark is for Covenant. If my Covenant hits 40k and I get 13% more of 40k, that's a lot of extra damage. A
Right.
lot, right? So you look at stuff like arena defense. I explained earlier with the Triana with the additional damage received from wind, negative, right?
Right.
Less damage from wind. Well, when you pair it with something like Vanessa, that makes her so tanky to Lucian comps when they try to Lucian you.
Yeah.
And I really, I like that we can't go and look at, say swag and malicious. I like how we can look at their defenses, but we can't look at their runes.
Sure. Yeah.
If you could see their artifacts, some of these defenses have less damage received from wind.
Sure. Yeah, I bet that. Yeah.
Just so they don't get, they're out of copper range or they're out of Lucian range, or even some of the comps that that people take Julian to receive less damage from water.
Hmm.
So when you're setting up your comps for your arena defense, your Guild War defense, and your arena defense, look at what artifacts you have, look at what your comp could most potentially be weak against, and then try to strengthen it off of what artifacts you have, because it makes a big difference.
Right on, my man. Well, I'll tell you what, I think I could speak for the Summon Resort community where I just want to say thank you so much for all the insight that you gave on this video. Without question, this is going to be a very, very nice guy for the community, and I'm super honored to have you on my channel, man. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Childish.
All right, guys. Well, we'll go ahead and call it right there. Once again, I want to give a huge shout out to Mctrocity. If you guys want to go ahead and check him out on Twitch, I will leave the link in the description down below so you can show your support, the same support that you've been showing me over the last 6 years here. Do it for me. I would greatly appreciate it, guys. That's going to be it, y'all. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's your boy Childish and Mctrocity with ChildishPlays. Check it out. Take care, and we will see you all in the next one. We're out.